Greetings, all you wonderful people. Before I launch into my weekly monologue / rant, I just want to give you a quick reminder to check out my patreon.com site. I'll say it again, patreon.com site. Signing up to the site is the most direct and practical way for those of you who want to show your support for the channel, for the whole channel, for all the podcasts. As a benefit, you get early access to new content. There's an exclusive question and answer video every week, which I prefer to think of as a two-way conversation between us all. It's great. So come along, help make it even better just by stirring yourself into the mix. Okay, now it's time for this week's thought. As things stand at the moment, we owe it to ourselves to be of good cheer. I say this to you with all sincerity, fellow travellers. Be of good cheer, in the hope that we're finally witnessing the end of all that's wrong in the world. And it won't be pretty, this ending of all that's wrong. On the contrary, it will be ugly. There's no getting away from it. You have to face up to it. But it has to happen. It's a process through which we have to go. And once the ending is over, there will be, of course, a beginning, a new beginning. And we can definitely, if we are minded so to do, we can see the beginning of the ending now. And it's revealed by the fact the target of the dying last moves of the perpetrators of all that's wrong is finally our children. In the UK, the enemy, and that's my shorthand for the perpetrators of all that's wrong, in the UK, the enemy talks about bringing back national service. That's how they couch it, because, you know, people who remember watching Dad's Army and the like, and so on, and who have parents or grandparents who perform national service, it's an iron fist in a velvet glove. And in the present context, on account of those who are in charge, it's the on-ramp to the motorway heading towards conscription of our children into forever wars. And we needed to see this final revelation because it reveals the enemy's ugliest face. Those who would control the world always target the children sooner or later. It's inevitable. If you're anti-human, and the perpetrators of all that's wrong are anti-human to their core, then you desire and require nothing less than the death of the family, which means the death of the children, the actual death of children. It's obvious now in every way. And if enough of us hold the line in defiance and in open contempt of all the old tricks being played one last time, we can be rid of our tribulations once and for all. It wasn't me, actually. It was Trudy. Was walking past a newsstand and she saw a headline on one of the UK papers. National service will toughen up British teenagers to face increasingly dangerous world. It was in the Daily Express, I believe, this very week. And the Daily Express is not by any means the worst of the foul drags, but it's nonetheless illustrative of the terminal decline of the enemy. The emptiness of the adversary we face, its complete lack of any sound substance of its own, leaves it no option but to wrap itself, to cloak itself, to disguise itself with the garments of another. Since it's the antithesis of life and humanity, what it means to be human and alive, the enemy needs to pretend at all times to be something else, needs to disguise its true nature. Now, national service. A call for volunteers and service is right enough. There's nothing wrong with it when it comes from a good and honest place, when it invites the following of a good example set by benign leaders, benign shepherds. Where you're in circumstances that the leaders are good and dedicated to the well-being of good people, then the call for service might be positive and productive. But don't be fooled by the headlines now. What we are seeing is the antithesis of all that's good and right. The enemy hiding its anti-human nature, its anti-human reality, by seeking to imitate all that it is not and that it can never be. So see this pathetic terminal behaviour for what it is, and as I say, thereby endeavour to be of good cheer, because before the adversary falls once and for all, it must and will manifest its very worst self. Before we can be rid of it, we have to see it clearly. And that time, that opportunity is before us now. I would say be ready for the servants of the adversary, the ventriloquist's dummies, to line up and trumpet whatever desperate nonsense is seen to be required, and urging support for that nonsense. So be ready for more headlines, and be ready for more hollow, empty sock puppets taking their turn one after another behind whichever podium to pretend their master's moves are well-intentioned. As part of the increasingly desperate efforts towards diversion and distraction, there will surely be more false flag events as well, so that I predict we will see more terrible things before it's over. False flag atrocities have presaged war throughout history. Wounds deliberately self-inflicted, or else planned and executed by others and not prevented when the consequences suit evil intentions all round. Some of those false flags of the past that strike me are the sinking of the USS Maine before the Spanish-American War, the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand before the Great War, the First World War, the attack on Pearl Harbor before World War II. It's widely conceded that attack had been planned and was coming, was well known, but nothing was done to stop it. Sometimes the evil in question is committed so as to make convenient the pointing of fingers at whomever the adversary might attack next. Iraq. Always and only for their own ends. At other times, likely atrocities are detected in advance, but they're allowed to happen, as I say, if the dreadful consequences might be exploited. And once you learn to spot false flags, you might join other dots to correctly identify many more, because false flags are set up again and again. Innocent people have died before, and more innocent people will die again, because false flags are tricks that work. False flags are the stock in trade of the adversary, and he will have spectacular atrocities in mind, I'm quite sure. Horrors shaped to frighten the gullible into accepting any offer of protection, even the protection of their erstwhile tormentor, which is the adversary. A bad boy did it and he ran away. That will be the horrified headlines in the aftermath of whatever happens. And, we'll be told to be safe from more of it. It's necessary to accept digital IDs, central bank digital currencies, social credit scores, even more surveillance, limiting of energy, limiting of food, limiting of travel, all for our own good. But anyone with any sense, however, will not gather in that shadow cast by the tormentor, but will choose to find the light instead. I say the adversary is falling like a tree all but cut through at the base, finally hurt beyond survival by self-inflicted wounds. The enemy of all that's good, all that we might be and all that we might enjoy, that enemy is angry and frightened as never before on account of those wounds. And in the way of wounded predators, it's lashing out at the most vulnerable. And so, as I said at the top, it's the youngest generations that are in the crosshairs. The forever wars already being waged, and those that will come along in time, unless enough of us spot the tricks and say no to them and mean no, then those forever wars will be the inevitable destination for the children's crusade, shortly, I predict, to be called for by false prophets. The adversary we face is capable only of death and destruction. Every time the adversary gets his way, it's ordinary people that pay the price. Black, white and brown, Christian, Muslim and Jew, whoever. The intention, once more, is to set the same creeds against the same creeds, the same people against the same people. And even were the adversary to get his way once more and make more smoking rubble and more piles of dead, nothing at all will be raised in the aftermath. The adversary is incapable of creativity, incapable of positivity, of optimism, incapable of all that's life and that makes life worth living. And this is why we are surrounded by death, decline, and decay, moral decay, infrastructure decay, you name it, war and chaos, the general rendering into rubble that we see in other parts of the world. And this will keep happening until we see what is obvious and take the steps to be rid of it. Here's the thing. I say that when you get right down to it, the adversary is empty. In the end, in spite of all the chaos caused, the enemy is just piss and wind. In the end, there's nothing there. It's an empty void. I furthermore say the enemy is weaker now than it has ever been. It's more exposed than it's ever been, and therefore likely for some time to come to be more destructive and meddlesome than it has ever been. But if enough of us hold the line now, and by so doing encourage others to waken up and do likewise, then the enemy is going down. Not today, not tomorrow, but in the end, the enemy is going down.